Today I wanted to talk about a game that I stumbled across over the last week or so. I think I saw it on Twitter probably first. The game is called Ashfall. What is Ashfall, you ask? Well, according to IGN, Ashfall is an upcoming adventure shooter MMORPG being developed by a legendary star in conjunction with NetEase. It will release initially on PC and mobile, although there are console versions planned at a later date. IGN note that Ashfall is set in a post-apocalyptic world which saw an artificial intelligence uprising push humans to the brink of extinction following a nuclear war. The few remaining survivors were forced underground to live in vaults for many years, but the time has finally come for you and your friends to adventure back out into the world in hopes of saving humanity. I feel like I might have heard that concept somewhere before. I can't place where it came from. What am I thinking of? There's a post-apocalyptic world, vaults. Nah, can't think of it. Must be a new idea. Just a quick side note: this Ashfall is not to be confused with Ashfall being developed by Liithos Studio, which is a relatively new studio founded by Michael Mumber and John Garvin, ex-Sony guys. I think John Garvin was one of the main folks behind what's that fucking zombie game that was like super mid? The name's just gone out of my head. Days Gone. John Garvin was like the creator of Days Gone, I think, and then I'm pretty sure he left Sony in amongst all the sort of fallout at Bend when Days Gone wasn't getting a sequel. So yes, John Garvin, Michael Mumber, also developing a game called Ashfall under their studio Liithos, which is not this Ashfall. This is a totally different Ashfall being developed by, it sounds like a Chinese developer, Legendary Star, which is something I only realised after I started making this video. As I said, I come across this game on Twitter and I seen Ashfall had a new trailer released and I thought, oh, that's that game from the ex-Sony guys and John Garvin. I'm pretty sure that's supposed to be some like really weird Web3 game that sounds a bit sketch, so I thought, I'm going to look at this trailer because this might be an interesting subject for a video. 30 minutes of research later and I realised there are two separate games in development, both called Ashfall. Whose fucking idea was that? And on a related subject, can we please collectively agree just to stop putting fall in titles of games, particularly at the end of titles of games? To name a few now, we've got Titanfall, Godfall, Greedfall, Redfall, Lightfall, Crowfall, Planetfall, and now two fucking games called Ashfall. Too much. Enough. But I digress. Turning back to this Ashfall, as I say, it popped up on my Twitter timeline. I seen IGN were punting an overview trailer or something that had been released. So I thought, let's fucking watch it and see what the game actually is. The overview trailer itself doesn't give away much, I don't think. It just looks like fairly generic. It's exactly what you would think a sort of PC and mobile sort of Fallout inspired MMO thing would be. There's nothing in there that really gives it much of a clue as to whether it's good or bad or whatever, I don't think. However, on digging a bit deeper, I noticed that IGN had previously did a world premiere live stream back in September 22 for the game, which actually contained some gameplay footage, so I thought, I'll sit down and watch that. You know, fuck it, I've got some time to kill. I was already planning on doing my video about a game called Ashfall anyway, might as well be this one. So I watched the live stream and holy shit, this game looks like a fucking gigantic pile of garbage. I appreciate that it's obviously a work in progress, and as with all these types of streams, everything you're seeing is probably pretty early. So instead of me caveating every sentence that I say from here on out with, I know it's a work in progress, but let's just assume that is applied to everything I say going forward. Firstly, let's take a look at the graphics. In my view, this looks like a PlayStation 3 game. It looks like The Division if it was developed in 2008. Okay, maybe that's a little harsh, but it doesn't look very good. It's probably not helped by the fact that the art style looks super generic. There's a lot of flat looking, boring structures and textures, bland environments, and it's kind of the bare minimum you'd probably expect from like a Fallout style world. I appreciate that the game's got to run on mobile, but there are plenty of mobile games out there in this day and age that look great. The one that immediately jumps to mind is Genshin Impact, which is a particularly prominent example of a game that runs really well on mobile and looks beautiful. And there are other MMOs out there that are PC/mobile that look way, way better than this. Another thing that rings alarm bells for me with this game is how the developer keeps prattling on about having Hans Zimmer involved working on the music of this game. And I think they've also got the guy who did the original music for Fallout as well, whose name escapes me. I apologise. But yeah, they keep fucking going on and on about how they've got these folk involved in doing the music for the game. And when companies do that, it always just feels like a bit of a red flag to me. I get that having like a famous name sort of technically involved in your game, although I would question how much Hans Zimmer actually did or is doing. That can generate some buzz, but when it becomes like a big focus like this, it feels less like a trying to generate some hype for your game and more like a sort of sleight of hand. Don't look at how shit the game is over here, concentrate on the fact that Hans Zimmer's doing some music for it. That being said, the sort of graphics and sound are not the main issues that I have with Ashfall at all. It is what we saw of the gameplay that made the biggest impact on me. Based on what they showed, it looks like a kind of relatively generic third-person looter shooter type situation where you're fighting against some humans, some monsters, eventually kind of reaching some sort of boss that gives you loot which may or may not be better than the thing you currently have. Now, as someone who was obsessed with Destiny for years, that's totally fine with me, that's cool, I like a good looter shooter. This, however, does not look good. I've already described the game as generic a few times, but the combat looks really, really basic. Seems like there is a cover mechanic, but it kind of is seldom used from what they show. There's quite a number of combat arenas that don't actually even have any cover in it at all, and it's just the player character and some enemies, or an enemy sort of slowly walking towards each other, shooting, and the enemies look really bullet spongy, which is a big problem I had with games like The Division. It makes your weapon feel like it's a fucking spud gun, and it gets really boring really quickly. In Ashfall's case, this is also not helped by the fact that the guns sound like kids' toys. Maybe you should have got Hans Zimmer to do that part of the game as well. That was a joke, by the way. I know that's not what Hans Zimmer does. In addition to being spongier than SpongeBob SquarePants on steroids, the enemies don't really seem to do much. They mostly either just sort of stand still or slowly walk towards the player, and sometimes don't even fight back at all. This includes bigger enemies and bosses as well. There's a couple of times where the player comes up against this sort of intimidating looking giant robot bandit and you think, holy shit, this guy looks badass, and then he just kind of saunters towards the player doing nothing and accepts his death. And then there was the big final boss of the demo, whose name was James. Fucking James, really? Okay, sure, like maybe they're still working on the names, but name aside, this boss is like the big sort of thing they've been building towards. And he doesn't fucking do anything. He barely attacks the player at all. He just sort of floats about doing the same garbage ability that even a fucking game journalist could avoid being hit by. It's pathetic. And then when an enemy actually does have the impetus to fight back, there's this really horrible sort of glass bullet hole effect that comes on screen, which is a fucking eyesore. The best part of this entire demo was the awkward section where the little IGN employee who was playing the game had to pretend it wasn't dog shit because the developers were paying them to do the live stream. There's a part where this extremely generic looking sort of giant cockroach enemy that's at the start of every post-apocalyptic world game comes on screen, and he pretends it's impressive by sort of going on about how gross it looks. I was in fucking stitches.
Ooh, that guy looks gross. Do not like the look of that. Let's take this guy out.
Then there's another good moment where he sort of pretends that rolling away from a grenade that has like a little sort of AoE marker on the floor is like the most fun shit he's ever done in his life.
Oh, that guy threw a grenade at me. Oh, gotta get out of the way. Careful, Luke.
Then he pulls out a gun with a scope and he's like, oh, this fucking gun's got a scope on it. Oh my god, it does so much damage.
Oh, this one's got a nice scope on it too. 193 damage.
Okay, I'm exaggerating a little bit, but it was still pretty funny. And to be clear, I'm not criticising this individual IGN employee. I understand that he is just that, an employee who's been given a job to do, and he's just trying to do it as best he can. It's not his fault that it's not a very good job, and I can't imagine this was very pleasurable for him either, so yeah, I'm not I'm not criticising him, I'm just merely pointing out that this is the problem with endemic advertising in this sort of style. By far the weirdest stretch of the demo though is this like legit 5-minute section that's just someone riding about on a mount in like a kind of player hub zone, going from NPC to NPC, sort of doing the busy work that you do in between quests in MMOs normally. And I don't really know why they showed that, except perhaps to show off more of their extremely bland world. Which on that subject, there's a part of the demo where the IGN dude goes, oh yeah, we're going to jump forward to a different part of the game to, you know, show off more of this beautiful environment. And then it's just like the most basic fucking flat cave you've ever seen in your life. Oh, it's so good, man. So as I say, I came across this first when they released their sort of world overview trailer in the last week or so. What was interesting is that like a day or two after they did that, they delayed the game, so it was supposed to be coming out in 2023 at some point, and they've pushed it back to summer 2024, which is, the timing of that is interesting, obviously with it coming straight after a trailer. I didn't see a whole lot of chat around the game. I'm not sure whether what little chat there has been negative and that caused them to push it back, or just the lack of notice taken by it and maybe caused them to push it back. Or I wonder whether the release of that world overview trailer maybe was tied to like an internal milestone of theirs which the game didn't hit, and that's why it's been pushed back. But the timing was interesting. It just doesn't look good. And I wouldn't be surprised if this game just never came out, ever. If it was me, I would probably just fucking cancel it. But hey, at least we've got another Ashfall to look forward to as well, because, yep, that's the thing.